afternoon, this is Josh Greenwald. I'm with the New Hampshire Realtors Risk Management Committee. This is the next installment of the Risk Management video series. I'm here today by attorney Matt Johnson with Divine Milmet. He's also legal counsel with New Hampshire Realtors. We're here today to discuss a topic that really doesn't get touched on very often, and that's how do we handle multifamily listings and tenant-occupied listings. Matt, how are you?
I'm great.
Great. Matt, can you please explain some of the crucial concerns for realtors when considering listing multifamily properties?
Josh, great question. The issues facing listing agents when it's a multifamily or tenanted property are unique to that situation because you have a contract with the landlord, but you are showing property that is occupied by a third party or third parties, and those third parties have legal rights. So first and foremost, you need to understand what those rights are. They are primarily found in the lease that the landlord has with the tenant. So you need to make sure and check those. Most leases have notice provisions in them and provide you some guidance and some steps for figuring out how to alert a tenant that you're going to be showing the property and that you're going to gain access. You are allowed to gain access, but it has to be with reasonable advance notice to the tenant.
Oh, exactly. Do you find that a lot of realtors have difficulty getting their hands on the leases when they first list the property?
I do feel sometimes that is an issue. Sometimes in New Hampshire particularly, the relationship is more informal than we lawyers would like, and the landlord may have had a lease, but that lease is from 7 years ago and the tenant is still there, but you should still act that way. Absent a lease, I would give at least 24 hours notice to any tenant to be safe.
Generally by phone, not just assume that, well, they got the email, so I'll just show up.
Agreed. Yes.
Because you could find yourself in a real situation when you go knocking on the door.
Yes. You want to make sure they have actual knowledge that you're coming. Whatever means works the best in that situation for that tenant, yes.
Now, do they have to let you in when you come in?
With proper notice, they do have to let you in when you come in. But again, you got to give them enough notice, and it should be reasonable. But the landlord should also help you, depending on the tenants. If it's a multifamily or multi-tenanted apartment, the landlord should have some idea who their quote-unquote best tenants are, and really should steer you to one where there's going to be less drama and less controversy.
Oh, absolutely. So when listing these properties, and we've all been there as realtors, what do you hear are some of the biggest challenges when listing properties that have tenants inside, which really have no incentive for the deal for a buyer to buy the property?
Well, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, Josh. The real challenge is that you are listing a property and that tenant may very much not want that property to be sold. So you have an experience where you have sort of an adversary in the middle of your showing who may have an axe to grind with the landlord or be unhappy that the property may be sold because they may be fearful of change. So you have to be cautious and understand that ideally if you can do some due diligence with the landlord ahead of time to get some understanding of what the tenant is likely to be like. I also think you need to be open and respectful for the tenant, understand the tenant's properties are there. Please don't let the potential buyers take pictures of any of the tenant's property. Please let them see the unit, but they should not be picking through tenant items. So again, just treat them with respect and respect their privacy to the extent possible.
Well, you mentioned photos. When we come in to take photos of multifamily properties, we're taking pictures of people's personal belongings. They need to give consent to doing that.
Yes, they do. You should do your best to be as non-personalized in the photos as possible. So take shots of the apartment buildings, but do it in such a way that you can minimize any sort of personal items, and you may even consider graying out or using some of the techniques they have in photographs to make sure that you don't have any personal belongings, even if the tenant consents to the photo, just to protect their privacy.
Well, perhaps meeting with the tenant prior to commencing showings or even beginning the process to explain how it goes rather than assuming that the landlord has done that already.
Exactly. Communication up front goes a long way towards making it a smooth transaction for everybody.
So another question is, on a lot of showings, you go inside and you're bearing witness to other people's lives, which could include crimes being committed, laws being violated by potentially the owner of the property. How do you handle that?
I think in the first case, you are the agent for the landlord, so you have an obligation if you witness something that may be illegal or criminal or violate the lease to let the landlord know about it. If you view things that raise to a higher level, such as potential drug use, or child issues or uninhabitable, cockroaches, those nature. I think you should do a two-step process. You should talk to your principal broker to get some guidance. If you are the principal broker, I think you need to reach out to your attorney to talk with that person to get some guidance about what the next step should be. Some laws have mandatory reporting obligations, some do not, but you should take legal counsel on that issue.
Do you find that if you get reluctance from the landlord to say, well, this is the way it is, take it or leave it, what would your advice be to that realtor?
I think the realtor always needs to remind themselves that they have the ability to say no to a listing, so that if you are doing this situation, it's already challenging enough. If you have an uncooperative seller, in other words, the landlord you feel is not working to help you, you can always say, look, this is just not going to be a good fit for us. I think maybe you should hire someone else. You never want to put yourself in a position that you feel compromised in just for a transaction.
Understood. Thank you. So this was Attorney Matt Johnson from NHAR Legal Counsel with great advice on multifamily and tenant-occupied properties. If you have any questions, feel free to go to our website at nhar.org using the legal resource line on the NHAR website.